Being told you have cancer can be quite overwhelming. You've been hit with a diagnosis nobody wants to hear, then you don't even have time to come to terms with it when a sudden realisation hits you. How am I going to tell the people who mean the most to me that I have cancer? Telling your partner, your parents or your siblings is just so difficult because you know they're going to share your pain. For me, the toughest thing of all was telling my children. As my wife and I left the specialist rooms came the question, what do we say to the kids? And just how much do we tell them? And what do you do if they take it badly?
I know my sister, in instant tears there from my immediate family. Some of my friends, I think the shock was too much for them and they had to sort of go away and process the information, if you like, and then come back and ask more questions to get a better understanding themselves of what we had said. And I suppose, again, for them, it was unexpected. I was young and still am, and so it was a surprise, and I guess we don't expect the cancer word to come out, to people. So, yeah, I guess that it was interesting to see the way they reacted. And a lot of them, I guess they cried as well, but I did ask them all not to cry around me. I said I didn't want to see their emotions because I had enough to deal with myself, and they had each other. They could go and speak to other friends or family members or the Cancer Council and deal with their own emotions there without burdening me with what they were feeling, because there was enough going on as there was.
Receiving the cancer diagnosis, one of the hardest things is then not only dealing with your own distress about it, but deciding who to tell and when to tell and the best way to tell the people around you. Sometimes your partner may have been involved right from the start, from the moment that you first noticed a lump or felt that something was different. They may also have come along with you to some of the test results, and then it may be a little bit easier. They've been with you right from the start. But many times people haven't shared with anyone when they've first gone to the test. They've thought, oh, it's probably nothing to worry about. I won't tell them till I'm sure. And then, of course, you have the diagnosis and you're dealing with that and working out, my goodness, what do I tell my husband? What do I tell my partner now? It is important to tell them as soon as possible. People often feel distressed if they feel that things have been kept from them, and they will want to know that they can help you and be there for you as much as they can. But it is a difficult thing to do. You may worry that you're going to break down and distress them and that they will get really upset. The reality is you probably will, because it is a hard thing to tell anyone. But the other thing is it probably is okay. It probably will distress them less than you think. And in fact, most people would expect that someone would be distressed by giving that sort of news. And feeling that you're keeping it back may put them in the position of feeling they have to be strong for you. So it's actually okay to cry and be sad and not feel that you have to be strong with the person around you.
We full well know with child development that with small children up to about 7, 8, 9 years of age, they're very concrete, literal thinkers, and simply you wouldn't want to say things in a very graphic way like you might to an adult, because we understand that children really are still in their fantasy times and they would misconstrue and be traumatised by what you might have to say to them. So what you would say is that mummy and daddy is not well, we need to go to the doctors, we need to have treatment, and we're not feeling very well either. And so, excuse mum or dad if we're grumpy and if we seem out of sorts. For the older children, you need to say, look, there is a report back where we've been diagnosed with cancer, and we're certainly going to seek treatment about it. So we really would value your support, and try to pull them together and see it as a positive time, and give them as much information as possible, because if you don't, they'll make up their own story. And that we wouldn't want. So for small children, be very careful. You could easily traumatise them, but for the older children, of course, the adolescents, you'll need to be fairly upfront with them, because they will understand what's going on. They will have read and seen about it anyway through the media. So they will understand the implications of this, and they need as much information as possible, because otherwise they will make up their own story, and probably their made-up stories are not particularly positive. So let's give them information and keep them informed. I think what we have to be careful with is that, and I'm speaking very generally, we have some children who are introverted and very sensitive and imaginative. And for them, it's still waters run deep. So I would be simply asking them a lot of questions about how they're going and what they're thinking and what they're feeling, because they won't automatically disclose to you. And so for them, you need to ask lots of questions. The other children, who we would call extroverted and outgoing, and they wear their heart on their sleeve, for them, we would just simply need to listen, because they will tell you anyway how they're going. And so we would need to be listening to what they have to say. Other than asking questions or listening, I would simply be monitoring how they were going in their schoolwork and how they were going in their life generally. I'd want to note any changes, and I'd be observant.
I think we made the mistake initially of trying to withhold information until we knew exactly what we were dealing with, but kids are really good with sensing that something's not right.
If children are very distressed, depending on their age, it may be better for you to work with them as a parent, but we certainly in the Cancer Counselling Service can see children and families together if you're feeling that your children are really not coping with what's going on very well. Sometimes you may be worried about your own emotions. If I tell them, will I become too overwhelmed with it? That can be a very real fear, but from years of working with people, I can say that generally people find that that's not what happens, that in fact sharing it brings everyone a sense of relief and a sense of closeness, so it is okay to share it with the people around you. Sometimes people are disappointed they might not always get the reaction that they'd hoped for. Sometimes it is the person may not know what to say, and you may find that you're not quite getting the reaction you hoped for. Don't be too disappointed about that. People don't always know how to react when they hear the word cancer. Some people worry that if they say too much that they'll upset you. So unfortunately, when you're the person diagnosed with cancer, you often do have to educate people about how they can talk to you about what's going on with you. You may need to say things like, look, I am having a hard day, it's okay to talk to me about it, or I really don't want to talk about it much today, I'd rather talk about other things. Sometimes it can seem really unfair that you actually have to guide people in how to talk to you, but unfortunately that sometimes is the way that it is.
And I just told one very good friend who was a very experienced nurse sister, and I remember her remark was a pause on the end of the phone, and then she said, "Oh shit," which I thought was rather fun. And I laughed, and she said, "If you can laugh, I think you'll be all right," which I thought was a lovely thing to say.
You may not want to say too much too early because there are treatment plans and there are ways that you need to negotiate in terms of your health and the illness. I think I'd be waiting until I knew very clearly what was happening. I mean, if my work performance is being affected, then yes, I will need to say something, because I don't want the boss to call me up and say, you know, you're falling short here, or you're not meeting deadlines there, or your work performance has really dropped off and your productivity has dropped off. I mean, if that's occurring, then I'd want to say something quite early. But until that happens, and until I know clearly about the treatment plan, I wouldn't want to say too much. And when I did, I want to go to the boss with some sort of plan about my way forward. And so I might suggest, for example, that I'm going to go part-time, or is there a chance to be flexible because I have to receive treatment, which will take me out of the workplace? Can I also work at home for a period of time? So I would want to think about this for a bit and put a solution to the boss, but that's only when I really clearly have the treatment plan worked out with my specialist, whoever that might be.
And work was fantastic. They were terrific for me. Even though I'm an office worker, it's not like I've got physical work to tire me out, but they didn't overload me with work. They changed a few things around at work. The pressure was off, and it was a slowly baby step process to get back into work and get my confidence back too. I had lost a lot of that from a work point of view. You think it all comes naturally, but once you're away from it for a while and then go back, but work were terrific.
I think it's important to simply ask the question, how are you going? What's happening for you? And if you are the carer or the spouse or the partner, you'll often get a pushback. You know, I don't want to talk about it, it's off limits, I'm okay, and sometimes people will push back in that way. And I think it's really important for the carer not to get too frumpy and go, well, I was only asking, but to really just hang in there and say, well, that's okay. At any stage, I'd really like to know if you're not okay, and don't mind me, but I might ask you again soon because it really is on my mind and it does worry me. So be prepared for me to ask you now and again. Now, having said that though, I also think the carer and the partner and the spouse needs to get extra help as well, because sometimes they need someone to sound off to. And it might be a girlfriend, or it might be a mate, or it might be a work colleague. It could be any number of people. But they need to have someone to offload to, because it's a big load to carry, a very big load to carry, especially if they can't talk to the person who has the illness or has the medical complaint. So they need to get their own assistance, and it could easily be informal, catching up with someone for coffee or a beer or whatever. Of course, it could be formal, where they go and seek some counselling support. But typically, I would think they do need support.
For more information about this chapter, use the resources on this page. You can pause the DVD to give you time to write down the details.